This is ASMR News. Drift off, wake up, or simply relax with the world's biggest headlines. Witnesses reported that a Belarusian opposition leader was kidnapped and forced into a car by masked men in the center of capital Minsk on Monday. On Tuesday, after officials in Minsk spent hours denying any knowledge of Maria Kolesnikova's whereabouts, a spokesman for Belarus's State Border Committee claimed that she had been detained while attempting to cross overnight into Ukraine with two other members of the opposition's Coordination Council. However, on Wednesday, her colleagues said she prevented the officials from expelling her from the country by tearing up her passport at the border. The colleagues said they did not know her current whereabouts. White House coronavirus advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci said a coronavirus vaccine likely won't be ready by November 3rd. His comments counter those of President Trump, who said that a vaccine could be ready by Election Day. The chief executives of 9 companies developing COVID-19 vaccines joined in pledging that the safety of a COVID-19 vaccine is their priority. The statement comes amid fears that the U.S. federal government might rush the review and approval of a vaccine to give a boost to President Donald Trump's campaign for re-election on November 3rd. The CEOs pledged to only seek approval of a vaccine that has been proven safe and effective in a Phase 3 clinical trial. The statement was signed by the CEOs of AstraZeneca, BioNTech, GlaxoSmithKline, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, Moderna, Novavax, Pfizer, and Sanofi. Phase 3 clinical trials for a coronavirus vaccine developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University have been put on hold after a participant had an adverse reaction. AstraZeneca described it as a routine pause in the case of an unexplained illness. The outcome of vaccine trials is being closely watched around the world. The price of the company's stock dropped more than 6% on the news. The AstraZeneca-Oxford University vaccine is seen as a strong contender among dozens being developed globally. Mexico intends to produce its own COVID-19 vaccines and could have one ready by next spring, according to a researcher coordinating local efforts. The Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations said the vaccine, based on a virus that transmits the avian Newcastle disease, is ready for Phase 1 testing. Orozco said the vaccine, developed by the private firm Laboratorio Avamex with researchers from Mexico's main public university, UNAM, and the Mexican Social Security Institute, is ready to start Phase 1 testing. Irish pubs are set to reopen on September 1st, although owners will have tight coronavirus restrictions to follow. Ireland is one of the last European countries where wet pubs, which do not serve food, are still closed. These pubs have been shut since March, when the pandemic took hold and lockdown measures were introduced. Under the original lockdown easing schedule, pubs were due to reopen in August, but that had been pushed back repeatedly. Pubs that served food, as well as restaurants and hotels, reopened in late June under restrictions. Over 500,000 children have tested positive for the coronavirus, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics. It said children represented 9.8% of all COVID-19 cases in the U.S., where more than 6.3 million total cases have been reported. The AAP reported there were 70,630 new child cases, a 16% increase over 2 weeks, between August 20th and September 3rd, which brings the national total to 513,415. A 28-year-old South Carolina elementary school teacher died of coronavirus on Monday, 3 days after being diagnosed with the illness. It's unclear where the teacher contracted COVID-19, but the district instructed custodians to deeply clean the school. School officials are also working to determine anybody she was in contact with. South Carolina to date has reported more than 124,000 COVID-19 cases and 2,800 deaths. Tesla suffered its worst trading day since it went public 10 years ago, losing 21% of its value on Tuesday, dropping to $320.21 per share and a market cap of $308 billion. The drop was caused when Standard & Poor's declined to add it to its index of 500 major U.S. stocks. Being added to the index would have required portfolio managers who mirror the index to buy additional shares. Part of the rise in Tesla shares in recent months was in anticipation that would happen. When it did not, it caused a sell-off. The index requires companies to have a certain market cap and history of profitability in order to be added. Tesla reached the market cap threshold, being the most valuable automaker in the world, but it only posted its first operating profit in 2019. For the first time in the United States, the majority of 18 to 34-year-olds now live at home with their parents, according to a recent study by the Pew Research Center. In July, 52% of millennials were living in their parents' home, up from 47% in February, according to the analysis of Census Bureau data, surpassing the previous high hit in 1940, when 48% of young adults lived with their parents. A video widely circulated on social media shows Hong Kong police tackle a 12-year-old girl to the ground near a pro-democracy protest on Sunday. The girl said she was buying art supplies with her brother when she got caught in the protest crowds. The streets were cut off by police cordons, so we had to double back to meet our family, but the police suddenly ran toward us, she said, and then she panicked. Footage shows 2 cops approaching her and telling her to stand still before she takes off away from them. One of the cops tackles her to the ground, while several others work to pin her down, the video shows. thousands of rapes are reported in India every year, in a particularly shocking case, police in the capital, Delhi, have arrested a man in his 30s for the rape and assault of an 86-year-old grandmother. The woman was waiting outside her home on Monday evening for the milkman when she was approached by her attacker, said Swati Maliwal, head of the Delhi Commission for Women. He told her that her regular milk delivery man wasn't coming and offered to take her to the place where she could get milk. When she agreed to accompany him, he took her to a nearby farm where he raped her. Local villagers who were passing by heard her cries and rescued her, handing her assailant over to the police. A 13-year-old boy in Utah was shot by police officers after his mother called 911 for help with his mental health crisis. The boy, who has Asperger's, a form of autism, is now in serious condition in the hospital, his mother said. The police said officers were called to a violent psych issue and reported that a boy had made threats to some folks with a weapon. An officer shot the boy when he tried to flee on foot. A roadside bomb that targeted the first vice president of Afghanistan killed 10 people. VPM Raly Sep escaped with slight burns on his face and hand. The bombing came as Afghan officials and the Taliban prepared to begin their first formal talks. A Taliban spokesman said that the militant group was not responsible for the blast. Chinese and Indian officials accused each other's soldiers of firing warning shots at the border between the two countries, the first time in decades that guns had been used. Activities along the disputed border are difficult to verify due to its remote location. According to the Chinese military, Indian troops on Monday took the outrageous step of firing warning shots near a Chinese border patrol. India's actions, the Chinese said, were a grave military provocation of a vile character. Indian officials denied their soldiers had fired any shots and said it was the Chinese who broke the long tradition of refraining from using firearms. Brandon Lewis, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, said in the House of Commons the UK is preparing legislation which will break international law in a very specific and limited way. The comment came one day after charges that the government was seeking to alter elements of the Northern Ireland Protocol, designed to keep an open border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. A UK government official told reporters on Monday that the government is completely committed, as it always has been, to implementing the Northern Ireland Protocol in good faith, adding that we are making minor clarifications in extremely specific areas to ensure that as we implement the protocol, we are doing so in a way that allows ministers to always uphold and protect the Good Friday Peace Agreement. The controversy intensified after Jonathan Jones, the head of the UK government's legal department, resigned, reportedly over a dispute with Downing Street over its plans to challenge parts of the Brexit withdrawal agreement. Saudi Arabia cut its official selling price to Asia and the United States, causing oil prices to plunge on being driven largely by rising concern about how much crude oil the fragile world economy needs. The summer driving season in the United States is over, and jet fuel demand remains weak because many people don't want to fly during the pandemic. Zimbabwe banned mining in all its national parks after environmentalists took the government to court to prevent ecological degradation in parks. 2 Chinese firms had been given a license to explore for coal in Hwange, Zimbabwe's biggest national park, home to more than 40,000 elephants and numerous other species, including the endangered black rhino. Scientists believe they may have discovered the cause of rapid melting of a glacier in the Antarctic that is as large as Great Britain. The Thwaites Glacier's Achilles is melting at a rapid rate, dumping billions of tons of ice in the ocean every year and pushing up global sea levels. Currently, it alone contributes 4% of the total annual rise in sea levels. If it collapsed completely, it would add 67 centimeters, or 25 inches, to the total. A UK-US team has identified deep seafloor channels in front of the glacier that almost certainly provide the access for warm water to infiltrate and attack Thwaites' underside. They will use the information to develop a model to predict the glacier's future. Satellite monitoring indicates the glacier is melting at an accelerating rate, up from 10 billion tons of ice per year to over 80 billion tons today. While the glacier's collapse is not imminent, the scientists want to know how fast changes might occur. A murderer on death row was sworn in as a Sri Lankan lawmaker after a court ruled that he could not be barred from the country's 225-member parliament. Premalal Jayasakira was convicted of murdering activist Susil Perera before the presidential election in 2015. Sri Lanka has not carried out an execution since 1976. While his case was pending, Jayasakira was nominated and elected as a parliamentary candidate. His election created a number of legal issues, with his case eventually reaching the Sri Lankan Court of Appeal, which ruled this week that he should be permitted to take his oath of office. Since the election of this member of parliament has not been invalidated, the interim relief sought that he be permitted to attend parliament has to be allowed, the court said, though it left the matter ultimately to the speaker whether or not to swear Jayasakira in. President Donald Trump knew the dangers of the coronavirus pandemic in a February interview with journalist Bob Woodward, and admitted downplaying the threat in an interview a month later, according to an account of Woodward's new book. "I always wanted to play it down. I still like playing it down because I don't want to create a panic," Trump said in a March 19th on-the-record recorded call with Woodward. Despite the recording, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany claimed that President Donald Trump has never downplayed the coronavirus. Woodward, along with Carl Bernstein, did much of the original reporting on the Watergate scandal, which ultimately resulted in the resignation of President Richard Nixon. President Donald Trump took home art worth $750,000 from the residence of the U.S. ambassador to France during the 2018 visit in which he canceled a journey to visit fallen American World War I soldiers. The art, to be displayed in the White House, caused tension between embassy and White House officials, but was deemed legal because the pieces were U.S. property. Trump had extra time to spend in the Paris residence after canceling the visit to the cemetery for American troops killed during World War I and found some pieces of art that he liked inside. President Donald Trump was nominated for the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize by an ultra-conservative member of the Norwegian Parliament for helping to broker peace between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. Christian Tibring-Gjedde, an immigration skeptic, also nominated Trump in 2018 for his meeting with Kim Jong-un in Singapore. Trump immediately congratulated himself on Twitter. A 26-year-old woman from the Ivory Coast won the 2020 Royal Academy of Engineering's Africa Prize for Engineering Innovation. Charlotte Nguesson and her team won the award for a digital verification system that uses artificial intelligence and facial recognition to verify identities remotely and in real time. It works by matching the live photo of a user to the image on their documents, such as passports or ID cards. For websites and online applications, users will be verified via their webcam to establish their identity. Beginning in 2025, only films that meet certain diversity criteria will be eligible for the Oscars. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and scientists set out 4 standards which it hopes will boost representation and inclusion both in front and behind the camera. Only films that have met at least 2 of the standards will qualify for the award. The requirements will apply to films made in 2024 for the 2025 ceremony and beyond. Fire destroyed Greece's largest migrant camp on the island of Lesbos. It is unclear how the fires began, with some blaming the migrants and others blaming Greek locals. Authorities are trying to find shelter for the thousands who are now without accommodation. The government has declared a 4-day state of emergency. A fire near Sacramento, California that has destroyed 9,000 acres, or more than 3,600 hectares, was started by a smoke-generating pyrotechnic device at a gender reveal party. A couple, accompanied by their children and a friend or relative to videotape the event, went to a grassy field at El Dorado Ranch Park, a popular spot for fall photos, to announce the gender of their baby. They brought devices to send up either pink or blue smoke and reveal the sex of the fetus. However, with 4-foot-tall grasses and temperatures in the triple digits Fahrenheit, the spectacle created fire, which the couple tried unsuccessfully to douse with water bottles. Charges have not yet been filed, but the couple could face criminal charges and, in addition, could be held responsible for the costs of fighting the blaze, which could be in the millions of dollars. In Beirut, Lebanon, a huge fire in the same area as the explosion last month has blackened skies and caused panic throughout the city. The fire erupted at a warehouse storing oil and tires in the port's duty-free zone, and video showed smoke blanketing nearly all of Beirut. The fire was under control by Thursday evening, and authorities do not fear another explosion due to the fire. 3 volunteers linked to Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny became ill on Tuesday after an attack on their Novosibirsk office in Siberia with an unknown substance. Security video shows 2 men in tracksuits wearing masks running into the headquarters of Navalny's local team. One was holding the door, the other one threw a bottle with yellow liquid with a strong pungent chemical smell, a spokesman said. Meanwhile, Navalny has been taken out of his medically induced coma after becoming ill from suspected poisoning on an internal Russian flight on August 20th. Berlin's Charité Hospital said Navalny is responding to verbal stimuli. However, it remains too early to gauge the potential long-term effects of his severe poisoning. The hospital released details of Navalny's condition after first consulting with his wife, who said that Navalny would want that information released. Five people were given 20 years in prison, another person received a 10-year sentence, and the 2 remaining people were ordered to serve 7 years in prison for the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The trial has been criticized by a UN official and human rights campaigners who have said that the high-level architects of the murder remain free. Khashoggi's fiancée said the Saudis were closing the case without the world knowing the truth of who is responsible for his murder. The death of Khashoggi, a Saudi journalist, made international headlines in October when he was killed in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Khashoggi, who was living in exile, had been critical of Crown Prince Mohammed in his columns for the Washington Post. The murder of a second transgender woman in northern Mexico has unnerved the local transgender community and amplified calls for greater protections in a Latin American nation. Her death comes days after a transgender civil society group staged a protest there to demand greater protection. Those demands were sparked by the murder of another transgender woman whose body was found earlier this week in a town in the northern Chihuahua state. Starting this month, all English teenagers will learn about lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer sexual health and positive relationships. We want to support all young people to be happy, healthy, and safe, a Department for Education spokesperson said in an email to NBC News. The sex ed mandate is part of a broader set of guidelines instituted this week to teach high school students what makes a good friend, a good colleague, and a successful marriage, as well as to provide information on contraception, consent, and online safety. The curriculum aims to teach young people to understand human sexuality and to respect themselves and others. Dame Diana Rigg, famous for roles including Emma Peel in the TV series The Avengers and Olenna Tyrell in Game of Thrones, has died at the age of 82. She was also the only Bond girl to ever marry 007. She played Tracy, who married George Lazenby's 007 in the 1969 film On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Her daughter said she died of cancer after being diagnosed in March. Two advertisements, one showing a black woman's hair, labeling it frizzy and dull, the other showing blonde hair, labeling it fine and flat and normal, set off protests at one of South Africa's largest retail pharmacies. The advertisements were provided to retailer clinics Tresemme, an American brand of hair care products. Tresemme issued an apology on Monday and said it had removed the images, which go against everything we believe in, adding that it does not condone racism. It also said all employees involved in publishing the offensive advertisement have been suspended. Human activities have caused the world's wildlife populations to plummet by more than 2/3 in the last 50 years, according to a report from the World Wildlife Fund. The decline is happening at an unprecedented rate, the report warns, and it threatens human life as well. The Living Planet Report 2020 found that population rates of 4,300 monitored species declined by an average of 68% from 1970 to 2016. A day after temperatures hit 101 degrees Fahrenheit or 38 degrees centigrade, Denver is expected to receive 3 to 6 inches or 7 to 15 centimeters of snow, with higher accumulations in the surrounding mountains. Temperatures will drop to near freezing before returning to normal by the weekend. This would be the earliest in recorded history that a swing of this magnitude occurs, AccuWeather meteorologist Jake Soja said. He stated that usually such wild swings in temperature occur in the winter. Belarusian Victoria Azarenka upset Serena Williams in the US Open semifinals 1-6, 6-3, and again 6-3, and will face Japanese Naomi Osaka for the title on Saturday. Osaka beat American Jennifer Brady 7-6, 3-6, and 6-3. In the men's bracket, Spaniard Pablo Carreno Busta will face German Alexander Zverev in one semifinal on Friday, while Russian Daniil Medvedev faces Austrian Dominic Thiem in the other. This is a